Big news, big news. 5 Americans set free following difficult negotiations with Iran, including Pastor Saeed Abedini, who spent 3 long, agonizing years in Iran's most brutal prison. President Obama announcing this deal for their release and calling it a big diplomatic victory.
Our diplomats at the highest level, including Secretary Kerry, used every meeting to push Iran to release our Americans. I did so myself in my conversation with President Rouhani. After the nuclear deal was completed, the discussions between our governments accelerated. Yesterday, the families finally got the news that they had been waiting for.
Chief Sekulow represented Pastor Abedini's family. He is Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice. Jay, welcome. Good to have you here today.
Hey, Martha.
You know, we have talked
today
about this day for a long time. We've interviewed Naghmeh and you many times, your son as well, about the process here. And I want to talk to you about the family, but I want to start with President Obama, because I know that you all were very frustrated with the lack of action in getting the pastor back. And now it appears, according to what he said, that they were really pressing hard for this, he says, all along. What about your thoughts?
Well, look, I remember when the case started. Naghmeh contacted the American Center for Law and Justice because the State Department said they could offer no help. This was 3.5 years ago, that the State Department basically said there's nothing we can do. We got involved at that point, had a threefold advocacy approach. One was get the State Department engaged. Secondly, get the international community engaged. 3, get members of Congress engaged. So we had that plan. We put that plan into place. Once that plan was in place, Martha, our goal then became twofold. 1, keep your client alive when they're in prisons like this. As we've talked about many times, you and I, these are very difficult places to be. And he was in the worst prisons in Iran and was mistreated terribly. And our goal then was to keep the client alive. And then, of course, the other aspect of that is get the client out. So ultimately, the case, I'm happy to say, ends on a successful note. I told our staff on Saturday that once it was reported to us that we could confirm that Saeed Abedini was in fact in the German airspace on Sunday and that had landed at the military hospital, that in a very real way it is case closed and next case. We've got a lot of other cases involving persecution in the Middle East. You got genocide in the Middle East right now. So while we're rejoicing that Saeed is free, and we're pleased that at least those discussions picked up pace after the Iranian deal was cut and done, the fact of the matter is there's others in the region that are in just as difficult a shape as Saeed, and we're going to continue to work for those. But this should have never happened in the first place. We should have had a deal with the Iranians on the release of the hostages, and that's what they were way before we sat down at the table. But you know what? All I'm going to do today is say, mission accomplished. Mission accomplished.
What about the information that you're getting from him? We've started to learn a little bit more about some of the treatment of these hostages from what they're, from their first-hand accounts. Have you heard anything more from Saeed about what happened over there?
Not from Saeed. You know, Naghmeh, who I dealt with. You know, Martha, during this entire time, I've never talked to Saeed. I've never met him. Obviously, he was in prison in Iran when this happened, and we didn't have access to him. We dealt with Naghmeh, and the reports that we have is, you're right. I mean, they were brutalized, tortured in prison. That's also true from what I understand from Jason Rezaian and Amir Hekmati. They were in not great shape. They're in a hospital in Germany on a military base as we speak right now, being evaluated to determine their course of treatment. So obviously, this is the next phase of this is the medical phase. Then there'll be the healing phase. Look, Saeed and Amir Hekmati were in the longest. Amir a little bit longer than Saeed, but Saeed has been away from his family for almost a half. People don't, you know this because we've been covering this. We say 3 years. It's almost been 4. It's almost been a half a decade. He's been away from his kids and his family. So these families need time for healing. They need to get well. Our thoughts and prayer are going to be with them. As I said, our job at the ACLJ comes to closure. The family's journey continues. Our job as the lawyers comes to closure.
Yeah, as you point out, there are more of them, and some people feel that the deal that has been worked here may lead to even more of this kind of thing. We hope that's not true, and we're very glad that your client is home, and please send our best to Naghmeh and to their family. Thank you so much. Good to see you today.
I will do it, and Martha, thank you, and thanks Fox News for doing this.
You bet. Congratulations.